Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a high-stakes showdown that honestly reads like a tense political thriller. On one side of the ring, we've got federal investigators from India's Enforcement Directorate, and on the other, the incredibly formidable Chief Minister of West Bengal, Mamatha Banerji. We are going to unpack a clash that really tests the absolute limits of institutional power against street-level political optics. And just to give you a sense of exactly how intense this gets, listen to this severe reprimand from the Supreme Court of India. A chief minister cannot walk in the midst of an investigation, put democracy in peril. I mean, wow, that's not just a political rival talking on the news. That is a direct, incredibly severe reprimand from the highest court in the country. So you might be wondering, what on earth happened to trigger such a massive institutional clash? Let's trace it back to the event itself. Part 1, the I-Pac office raid. This whole constitutional friction really kicked off on January 8th, right in the heart of Calcutta. Now picture this. Just three Enforcement Directorate or ED officers were conducting this initial raid. But almost instantly, they found themselves completely surrounded, facing down dozens of local police personnel backed up by heavily armed Z-category security. I mean, imagine being one of those three federal officers in that room. Talk about a cinematic mismatch. Okay, so here is how it went down. On January 8th, the ED raided the offices of the Indian Political Action Committee, that's I-Pac, in Kolkata, and this was tied to an ongoing money laundering probe. But the situation just rapidly escalated. Right in the middle of the operation, Chief Minister Mamatha Banerji actually arrives at the scene herself, accompanied by the State Director General of Police. And according to the ED, the DGP allegedly warned the federal officers not to record anything in their official search document, the Panchnama. On top of that, there were allegations that independent witnesses were intimidated, and the chief minister allegedly took away the phone of an I-Pac official named Pratik Jain. It was literally a real-time, face-to-face standoff. Section 2. Conflicting tales of the raid. Because, as you can probably guess, a showdown this massive instantly spawns two completely different narratives. Let's look at the two sides neutrally here, because both spun this exact same event in wildly different ways. The Enforcement Directorate claims outright coercion, intimidation, and a blatant obstruction of justice by the state apparatus. They say they were basically threatened with arrest if they didn't alter their records to show zero recoveries. But on the flip side, the Trinamool Congress, or TMC, argues they were simply stepping in to protect confidential election strategy and internal data from what they viewed as a politically motivated theft by a central agency. Which leads us to a really fascinating outcome, perfectly captured by this idea. In the theater of perception politics, nothing was seized becomes nothing was given. See, the ED ultimately walked out of there completely empty-handed. And legally speaking, the court confirmed that no seizure occurred. But politically, the TMC took that lack of evidence and totally spun it into a massive victory on the streets. They claimed they successfully and boldly defended Bengal's political secrets from being whisked away to Delhi. Part 3. Crafting the DIDI brand. To truly grasp why this street-level confrontation worked so well for her, we really have to look at the chief minister's carefully cultivated political persona. Consider the term Agni Kanya. It translates to daughter of fire. This is a hugely popular image of Banerji in Bengal. She's characterized as leading this resilient matriarchal resistance against what her party portrays as an overbearing, hypermasculine, top-down federal state. There is a deeply ingrained cultural and gender dynamic playing out here. She is positioning herself as the lone woman fiercely defending her home turf, her state, from powerful outsiders. And crucially, she fights in the heat of the moment. She doesn't wait for a courtroom to sort things out. Her brand relies heavily on these raw, emotional, direct action appeals. The visual of a woman in a simple cotton sari, physically standing her ground against federal agencies, that creates a deeply resonant narrative for her electorate. It totally bypasses standard legal maneuvering and goes straight to the hearts of her supporters. Section 4. History of the Street Fighter. Because honestly, physically stepping in like she did on January 8th, that is not an anomaly for her. It's actually her entire playbook. If we look back at her career, you can see how this David versus Goliath approach built her. Check out this timeline. In 1984, she became one of India's youngest parliamentarians by defeating a veteran communist leader. In 1998, she founded the All India Trinamool Congress. Fast forward to 2006, and she's making national headlines with a grueling 26-day hunger strike against land acquisition in Singapore. The very next year, she's leading the fierce Nandigram protests against special economic zones.
All of this intense street-level organizing is exactly what culminated in 2011, when she finally ended the 34-year communist left front rule in Bengal. So, confronting power directly on the streets, that's literally how she built her path to the chief minister's office.
Part 5, the Supreme Court responds. Because at the end of the day, optics can only carry you so far, right? Let's pivot from the political maneuvering back to the harsh institutional reality and the massive legal blowback from that I-Pac raid. So, right after the standoff, the Enforcement Directorate went to the Supreme Court seeking relief under Article 32 of the Constitution. They argued their fundamental rights were violated and they needed to be able to probe without hindrance. In response to that, Banerji's heavy-duty legal team tried to completely reframe the raid. They argued it was a center versus state conflict, saying the union government should actually be moving under Article 131, which is specifically for disputes between the center and the states. It was a really clever attempt to elevate a physical raid into a high-level constitutional battle between governments. But the Supreme Court? Yeah, they weren't buying it. Justices Prashant Kumar Mishra and N.V. Anjaria explicitly stated this is, per se, an act committed by an individual who happens to be the chief minister. The court completely rejected that center-state defense. They stripped away all the political framing and looked at it strictly as an unprecedented individual interference in a lawful investigation.
And the institutional consequences of that ruling were dire. The Supreme Court ruled it was absolutely not a dispute between the state and the union. They went so far as to label the chief minister's conduct extraordinary and unprecedented. Following all of this, the ED actually sought a CBI probe against the chief minister and others for preventing them from discharging their duty. Talk about a sweeping legal reprimand. It gave a massive amount of ammunition to her political opposition right on the eve of elections.
Section 6, Perception versus the Law. So we've walked through the street battle, and we've unpacked the legal battle. Ultimately, we are left looking at a really stark clash. On one side, you have the institutional reality, a severe reprimand from the highest court in the land for jeopardizing democracy and obstructing a federal probe. But on the other side, the political optics, a leader who, at least in the eyes of her loyal voters, boldly outmaneuvered federal agencies to protect Bengal's honor. It's an incredible contrast, isn't it? A strict legal defeat matched right up against a massive public relations victory. So, what is the ultimate takeaway from all of this? Well, I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. In the high-octane world of modern politics, which holds more true power? Is it a definitive, institutional court order, or is it the raw, emotional optics of the street? It's a question that really forces us to redefine how we view political power today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.